I've had a long banking career of 38 years, and 2.5 years in the academic field. And being very fond of reading, I've always been searching for a lot of knowledge and about ethics and governance. But I found very comprehensive, it may sound very simplistic, formula for ethics and governance. One, in the famous writer, Rudyard Kipling. All of us have been watching his Jungle Book. But I think he has not only dealt with the jungle scenario, but I think he also studied human beings. And he has made a very interesting quote of his, which I thought I will share with you. He says, I have 6 honest servants. I have 6 honest servants. I rely on these servants who have taught me all I need to know and do. And they are what, why, how, where, when, and who. Amongst them, I value very much why. Because if I'm able to answer the why honestly, it provides me a robust foundation for whatever I'm going to do in my life. And that is the purpose of what I'm going to do. If the purpose is selfless and the purpose is noble, then the actions that follow will also be quite noble and probably what we now call the triple bottom line. It will certainly fulfill that triple bottom line when I do something. Then he says, when I was looking into that, then I attended a Rotary conference. I was invited as a special invitee for a Rotary International. And I tried to, when I read their mottos and their action plan, their 4-way test struck me very much. The Rotary's 4-way test is displayed very prominently. I came across that about 3 decades back. In my entire remaining 30 years, I kept that 4-way test on my desk. And that has been a great formula for me, which helped me to stand the test of various decisions I had to take. Very simple, but I think very profound. I link it to the question of why of Rudyard Kipling, and to arrive at why I should do something, I ask this 4-way test. The first question is it the truth? Is what I'm looking at is based on real facts? The next question, and very important, is it going to be fair for all concerned? Of course, all the stakeholders, the shareholders and the stakeholders. Will it build goodwill and better friendship and harmony? And last, will it be beneficial to all concerned? I think Kipling's 6 honest servants and Rotary's 4-way test I have found, to share with you very honestly, a very simple but profound formula in the matter of ethics and governance wherever I have been. I was listening to the earlier eminent speakers, and I do agree with them that the best of laws, regulation, rules, they have not been absent, whether in the United States or Europe. Even after the 2008 meltdown and the US and the European governments and central banks came up with very stringent regulation, still there have been frauds going on. Recently, some of the internationally acclaimed banks like Royal Bank of Scotland, HSBC, have been severely fined for lack of ethics in governance. So what's the use of those rules and regulations that were implemented? Is a very important question. And while looking at that, and even yesterday's, I think Hindu carried a very good story about the young man, who the trader was doing securities trading for Union Bank of Switzerland. He caused a loss of $2.3 billion in 2012 because he traded excessively beyond his powers. His sole motive was to make the company happy with huge profits and also collect his incentive. So, and the other day, about a few months back, he has been released from prison for good conduct in ahead of this 7 years prison. And this is what he says in his interviews. It could happen again. Listen to me, it could happen again. The young people I have spoken to are still struggling with the same issues, that is, the same conflicts, the same pressures to achieve no matter what. So this is a very important eye-opener for us, that all corporate world, whether in banking, or other corporate world, or in public services, that if the overhead tank is clean, all the taps will give clean water. Therefore, in speaking about the public financial institutions like banks, insurance companies, even public enterprises, listed companies, it's very important that they have a strong, ethically oriented board of directors. The Companies Act 2013 probably is quite a landmark. There are still certain loopholes, but comparatively, it has tried to plug a lot of loopholes that were there in the earlier legislation. Hopefully, we hope the frauds will come down. I'm not very sure. Because so long as we are in a rule-based system, we'll always find a way to break the rules or circumvent the rules. But if you're going to have a principle-based system, it's very broad, but also very indicative that what we are going to judge about your actions is not the quantitative or the specific nitty-gritties, but the outcome and its effect on all the stakeholders. If that is probably done, and that's why probably the International Financial Accounting Standards, IFRS, is probably trying to bring in a principle-based accounting standard rather than a rule-based one, which was very conveniently circumvented by some of the noted accounting companies in the world due to non-controlled conflict of interest. Another important issue probably we need to answer is an honest person honest all the time? Does it depend upon trade-offs in specific context? Empirical psychological tests have shown that there is nothing like a tight circle of honest people or dishonest people. It's a bipolar system between the most honest, who will never be dishonest, and those who will always be dishonest. There's a gray area of those who will depend upon the circumstances, will decide whether they should make a quick buck or not. And this is a large proportion of people we need to focus on to ensure if our public services, our financial institutions are going to prevent. We cannot eliminate, but I think we can minimize the impact of frauds, misconducts relating to unethical behavior. Malcolm Gladwell, another important writer, in his book Tipping Point, a very interesting book, he says that honesty is considerably influenced by situation. And there have been a lot of behavioral experimentations on this issue. And what it says is that in a large area, if there's an opportunity, and I said between the always honest and always dishonest, the group in between, which is a very large proportion, will first say what are the stakes of being dishonest. So then they'll evaluate, if I'm dishonest, how far I'm going to be caught. If the probability of being caught and punished is low, then the probability of becoming dishonest is more. And I think these are issues which are very practical, and therefore, in our governance system, besides inculcating strong values and ethics right from childhood, in our homes, in our education institutions, in our organizations, we need to bring in systems where we have broad principles, we have a clean overhead tank, the board of directors and the CEO who walk the talk, and then we have clear role responsibilities and rewards for being honest. There should be, if you are going to have only punishments for being dishonest, but no recognition or rewards for being honest, I think those who have been always honest sometimes will say, okay, if they can get away with dishonesty, why not I? And this is what I found, that the principle of hot stove. I had a professor in labor relations who taught us the hot stove theory. I come from a public sector background where our daily banking activities first started with struggling with the unions. Wherever I worked, we had about 9 to 10 trade unions. Morning 2 hours will go only in negotiating and ensuring that they perform. Right? And of course, the story has changed a little bit now, and considerably after the year 2002 when liberalization came and private sector banks came, and the government started preventing too much of political interference in the banking affairs. But still, in those days, between 1973 and 1996, 2000, managing a branch or a regional office or even headquarters with about 9 to 10 unions always trying to get into the limelight and making issues. But their own business was to keep themselves busy with issues. So we couldn't spare sufficient time for customer service issues or business growth issues. But once the new regulations came of Basel I and II and III, there where efficiency of performance was very critical, and we had to go to the public for investments by way of equity, we had to be very customer-centric. So the voluntary retirement scheme of 2000, in which I was involved, made a tremendous change. I'll just quote it once. The so-called trade union leaders were vehemently opposing the voluntary retirement scheme. We were the first to take it and go away. And we realized that that brought down a lot of indiscipline in the public sector banks for the reason it opened the eyes of the blind followers what kind of leadership they had. Okay? So the 120,000 people who left the public sector banks, of course, a lot of good people left. But then I think it was a trade-off. And I must say that after that, things have substantially changed. Now there are other issues. Now the other issues that public sector banks are struggling is not only the NPA, it is again the inability for swift reprisals for unethical behavior. There's one of the problems which probably the entire country is facing, that our reprisals or response to unethical conduct, despite rules, laws, regulations, is not swift enough and not exemplary enough. So take for example the traffic violations. It goes on with impunity. The next is adequate tenure for the CEOs. Unlike private sector, in the public sector, there are tenures as short as 12 months. So if you want to show results in 12 months, you have to compromise sometimes with a lot of vested interests in order to ensure that at least the tempo of growth is maintained, okay, to be able to buy peace. So that is a negative point, which probably, and in public sector, we have so many masters. Unlike in the private sector, we have the parliament, the finance ministry, the Central Vigilance Commission, then you have the trade unions and various forums, then there are commissions of inquiry, parliamentary committees. So it's even managing regular business and maintaining business itself is a great challenge in the public sector. That doesn't prevent or should not prevent us from bringing in a lot of efficiency and customer centricity, which is going to come. I hope with the new scheme of selection of bank chairman, MDs, and board of directors through the autonomous banking bureau board, I hope that some of these lacunae, which have contributed to the problem of ethics and governance down the line, will be remedied in due course of time. So I would like to say that ethics and governance is the lifeline of sustainable development and growth. If we don't have that, the best of organization can collapse under its very weight. I can give only one example of the Global Trust Bank, a very fine bank, highly technology oriented, very committed people, but the top was not good. So they succumbed to various pressures and the bank had to be merged with the Oriental Bank. I saw the final absorption and solving the problems, but I would say they are very fine systems and procedures, but that didn't prevent the bank getting into a very negative spin. So I do agree, and I think you will also agree, that ethics and governance is not a moral story, but it is a sine qua non of any organization that needs to grow profitably, economic profitability, as well as social obligations. The triple bottom line, I think, is a valid and very strong foundation for ethics and governance. Thank you very much.